Welcome everyone. My name is Jody King and I am the contract specialist with the Alaska Apex Accelerator. And we have a fabulous afternoon session. You're going to be just astounded. Just the few minutes I got to speak with these amazing women last night doing our technical check. Just the confidence and the information was fantastic. So you guys are in for a great treat. But before we officially get started, just as a reminder, this is a recorded event. The recording will be posted on the Alaska Apex website. What I'm going to do is let everybody that presented review the recording if they'd like, and then yay or nay. So it will take us about a week to get that posted on the website, and I will email everyone that registered for the event when the recording is posted, or if for any reason we decide not to post it. Also, there's the handouts, which contain the rest of the slides from this morning and the questions that we're going to be going over this afternoon. And of course, the contact information for the companies that these women are presenting themselves and their business today. If you have any questions, please feel free. We really do want to encourage conversation. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that. You can enter your questions in the Q&A box, or if you're just using your phone or it's difficult to type, feel free to click that raise hand feature. And I am watching that, and we will make sure that everyone gets a chance that has raised their hand to speak and ask their questions as well. All right, so Norma, you want to do your SBA welcome?
Of course. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for those of you who joined us this afternoon for joining us back. Hopefully you had a power lunch and you're ready to go for session 2. Of course, every March at the SBA, we celebrate women entrepreneurs nationwide. We do that through through trainings, highlighting resources and funding that are available for women-owned small businesses. And just a couple highlights of what that means. About 14 million women-owned businesses in the United States, which is about 39.1% of US businesses. From 2019 to 2023, that was an increase of 13.6%. Contributing to about 1.8 trillion to Americans' gross domestic product every year. And for Alaska, we sit about 43.8% of women-owned businesses here in Alaska. So we are definitely seeing an increase, a trend of women who want to, enter different spaces of industries. And one interest is government contracting. And so we partnered with Alaska Apex Accelerator and the Alaska Women's Center to bring you today's workshops. And with that being said, we are excited about this afternoon's panelists, each one of you with just a remarkable story of entering into industries that are predominantly, male dominated. So we are eager to listen about your journeys, lessons learned, and just advice you would give others who want to enter government contracting. All right, Jody, I'll turn it over back to you.
Thanks, Norma. So ladies, just as a reminder, what we're going to do, again, we want this to be a very conversational, comfortable space for you as well. So I'm going to start off with introductions for yourself, and then we'll roll into some of the prepared questions that we have in place, and then open it up for questions from the audience. So first up, get my slide going. Christine, you want to say hi and tell us about yourself and your company?
Sure. I'm Christine Hopkins, and I'm the CEO and majority owner of the ASCI family of companies. We started out as a commercial company in 1999, doing warehousing and supply chain management for the oil industry. Largest customer was BP. I came in 2013 as a succession plan to take over the company from the original founders that were, to quote them, old and tired. So around 2018 or so, we started to see the writing on the walls that oil and gas was going to be tough on contractors, particularly those small contractors, as it became politically unpopular and things started to compress. And then COVID hit and accelerated that timeline significantly. So I took the company through a partial liquidation to exit all of the original owners except for myself and the other working owner. We restructured as a woman-owned small business on January 1st, 2021, and then began our path into federal contracting. So we took one of our subsidiary companies, pulled it out, made it wholly owned, and that became ASCI Federal Services. It was daunting and terrifying because I got rid of all the money in the ownership transfer. So it was definitely an uphill climb to try to win some business before we ran out of money. And we won our first federal contract in November of 2022. And we just won our second federal contract with the Department of Navy. I'm actually in North Carolina standing that up right now. It starts on April 1st. So it's been a roller coaster of a ride getting from 2019 to 2024.
Thanks, Christine.
Absolutely.
All right. Let you introduce to our next presenter. Brenda, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everyone. My name is Brenda Friend, and I'm the owner of Friend Contractors. It's a family-owned business that started about 45 years ago on Kodiak Island, an island in Alaska. We call it the island in the middle of nowhere. And we do all sorts of construction projects. We are from metal buildings to residential, and we've done some pretty big jobs recently. In 2020, we were awarded our first 8A contract on JBear, and we received 3 of them in the same year, but were shut down due to COVID. For about 2.5 years, we struggled through getting those projects done. But I am the primary owner. I'm 51%, and I work with my husband. And we are 8A certified. I've had my 8A status for 8 years. We're economically disadvantaged, woman-owned enterprise, and I am Alaska Native, and I've been born and raised in Alaska. Been here since the beginning of time, before the big earthquake. So we're growing. I have about 26 employees. They keep us pretty busy. We are the island's biggest general construction company, but we do quite well with what we do, and our motto is build it right the first time. So we tend to concentrate more on quality than we do quantity. And we're a busy little construction company.
Thanks, Brenda. Esther, would you like to say hi?
Sure, yeah, I would love to. I'm still off mute, right? I just want to check that.
Correct, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, my name's Esther Babcock. I own and operate a geophysical consulting company here based out of Anchorage. Geophysics is a fancy word for basically looking for things under the ground non-invasively. I do a lot of work for engineering, environmental, mining, oil and gas, technical work out in the field. We've been operating for 7 years now. It's just been completely amazing on multiple fronts. That's the scoop.
Thanks, Esther. All right. So let's go ahead and roll into conversations or questions. So question number 1, and we're going to do this in a round robin. And if you just want to kind of keep following the order in which you did the introductions, that's fine, or I can change it up if we're being too predictable. But here's our first question. Tell us your story. Why did you start your business? And what was that main driving reason? So Christine, if you want to start, go ahead.
So I shared some of it in the intro, but really it was the why was to survive. So that's why I started the government contracting arm. It was that or potentially go under, because oil and gas was contracting, and I didn't see it coming back in time. So that was really the why. And the driver was to preserve the jobs for the team that we had. You know, I wanted the company to carry on and for us to continue doing what we were doing and be able to provide amazing job opportunities to the employees that we had. And I wanted them to see the success at the other end of it.
That is a fantastic driving reason, you know, to protect that, because you could have joined the other owners and said, well, you know, it was a good run and time to something different. So kudos to you. So
Yeah, I don't ever do it the easy way.
Oh, yeah, I think that's an entrepreneurial trait. I could do it the easy way, or I could do it the way that requires that I don't get much sleep. So Brenda, same question to you. Tell us your story. Why did you start, and what was your main driving reason?
Well, like I mentioned, it was a family operation that my husband's father started many, many years ago, about 60 years ago here in Kodiak, in the construction field. And then my husband grew right into it, and he was doing quite well and working pretty steady on the Coast Guard base. In Kodiak, we have the world's largest Coast Guard base, and there's about 4,000 people that are stationed here. And he was doing a substantial amount of work, but then the rules changed, and all of a sudden they were doing contracts a little differently. And the majority of the work was going to larger corporations off island, and we found ourselves in a survival mode too, where we have a lot of large native owned construction companies that are 8A certified that were picking up all the work that we used to do in our hometown. And so I just decided at that point, if you can't beat them, join them. So we went out, and took me quite a few years, took me 6 years to get my 8A. And I got my 8A certification. And then you have to build your performance, and you have to start moving forward with your bonding capabilities. It was just a flow. And so I went on to get my HubZone certification, my disadvantaged woman-owned business certification, and just really tried to get ourselves back in the game as a player. There's over 200 8A companies that are Alaska corporations, and we are not, but I belong to one of those corporations. So that's where we just decided to get moving forward. And historically, I've always been a CEO, and I always, I had to be that person that did exactly what the board directed you to do. For the first time in my life, I can manage our own company, and I don't have to report to a board of directors. And it's nice to walk in into a meeting and not have to turn around and answer to an entire board. This is my company, and we were able to make those decisions spot on. Usually my husband will follow my lead, so it works out really well. And that was my main driving reason, just to be able to be that construction company, that little construction company that we used to be, but be competitive in today's world.
Thank you, Brenda. That's a lot of great information. Absolutely. So far we've heard 2 out of 3 where it was we needed to step forward and take charge, and times we're creating the challenges and stepped up to overcome those challenges. Esther, tell us your story. Why did you start your business, and what was that main driving reason?
Yeah, I think what I hear from the other 2 ladies is that you come to a point when I don't want to use the word desperation maybe, but there's really no other viable option in your life. So yes, I was at that point too. I had no other viable option for my life after having been through 2 careers, and I decided to start a business, kind of leap of faith. So I would just say to people in the audience, you know, if you feel like you don't, it doesn't have to be this grand, oh yeah, I'm in a perfect place in my life and I'm going to start a business. No. Just if you're acting out of desperation, it will also turn out all right, and just go ahead and do it. But yeah, so I started the business in 2017. So we just finished our 7th year. Yeah, I don't know. Was there more of a story I should be telling? I think that's it.
No, that's good. That's fantastic information. Thank you. Good encouragement too. So let's move on to the next question, shall we? All right. So again, we'll start with Christine, and here's the question. What do you wish you knew when you started that you know now? If you could
Oh,
go back in time and given yourself a hint or an advice, what would have made your starting point? I know, don't you love
honestly,
those questions?
I think the biggest thing, if I could go back and do it all over again, so to speak, or if I, you know, knew now what I knew then, what I know now, it would be, you don't have to be alone in that process. You know, especially if you're in a male-dominated industry. I didn't know enough to know that there were amazing networks of women business owners out there. I should say how to reach them. You know, I knew they existed clearly, but how do you find a peer network of women that can understand what you're going through, both in the process of starting a new business, and in the process of starting a new business with family or with kids or with, you know, all of the stuff that women deal with that men starting a business don't necessarily have to face. So I think that probably would be what I would say, is don't feel like you have to do it alone.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic advice, because yeah, sometimes when we are in that act of desperation, that's how it feels, is we're standing on an island alone.
Yeah,
Brenda.
and it's depressing.
Oh, I see. I'm sure there's lots of attendees nodding their heads going, yep, been there, done that. Yes, absolutely. Brenda, how would you answer that question? What do you wish you knew when you started what you know now? But I need to reword that. That one's a mouthful to say.
Well, I would have to say that I have learned so much about the SBA, about PTAC, and I think now I know I should have probably used services and reached out a lot earlier. And I think maybe because I'm on an island in the middle of nowhere, I get a little secluded sometimes, and I'm focused on just getting your business surviving and making sure your employees are paid, that you get wrapped up in that. But for a long time, I guess when I first started, I thought, oh, I got my 8A, now jobs are going to come to me. You know, doesn't work that way, and it's highly competitive. And just reaching, I still have a number of agencies that I wish I could connect with, and one is our very own U.S. Coast Guard base that's right down, that I drive by almost every day. But reaching those point people is really difficult. I think things are getting easier now because of the internet and because of COVID, everything's gone Zoom. So absolutely connect with people. I think if I had to do things over again, I would not have started or jumped in with a joint venture. I think that was too early, and I didn't really understand what we were getting into. So I would say be careful. There's a lot of people out there that will take advantage of you, and especially if you're new. So be cautious about that, because it can consume a lot of your time and energy and very little benefit. I would say that's my biggest regret, that I would have spent more time researching and connecting in the very beginning.
Thank you, Brenda. Good answers. Good. It's just that reminder. Yes, absolutely. We often function, I think, just being a woman, a mom, a partner, just even the personal. Sometimes we get so caught in that immediacy of things that we forget that there is that resources out there and the assistance and that network of we can do it and that support. Thank you. Esther, same question to you. I don't know if I could read it a third time, but we'll.
No, that's okay. It's not necessary. Yeah, so I have a specific answer and a general answer. My specific answer is that contracts are always negotiable. When I started the business, I would get a contract and I would like jump through hoops and spend money and to meet the requirements of the contract, or just accept that I wasn't going to get paid for 90 days. But now that I'm like ensconced and I'm not so worried about making every dime, I kick back on a lot of things. I also know when not to kick back, but contracts are always negotiable. So try to use that when you can. And then my general answer is everything. So it's really easy to get paralyzed when you start because there's so much you don't know. And I'm the type of person that like is totally willing to jump in and charge ahead no matter what. But there are a lot of people that I see starting businesses who are like, I don't know how to do this or I don't know how to do that, but just start. So that's the most important part. There is so much that you don't know and that I didn't know, but you have to be willing to start somewhere, or you'll never get anywhere. Yeah.
That's great advice. One of the things that my dad told me is you make the best decision that you can with the information that you have on hand. And then going forward, you don't second guess yourself. You make new decisions based on new information coming in. So you didn't do wrong. You just now can make a better decision moving forward because you have more information. So it's kind of a refreshing way to think about it. Yeah.
So I would say make the same thing, make the best decision with available information you have available at hand, and don't beat yourself up about it later. Recognize later when you say, oh, that was the wrong decision because I didn't know this or that you did the best you could in the situation. So I guess that's what you meant by don't second guess yourself. But for me, I'm always like, oh, I should have done this, but I did the best with what I had, So
what do they say? Hindsight is 20/20 vision. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Looking backwards, it's so easy to think what you could have done.
Right. Yeah. But as long as you made the best decision you could at the time, then you have to give up the regretting it part, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Although sometimes that's easier said than done. All right, let's go ahead and move through. So here's our next question. Which resources or people have you used to help with your business growth, and how did you find those resources? So Christine, kicking it back to you.
Yeah, so I looked for everything I could possibly find, and I would agree with what Brenda said earlier. There's a lot out there that will take advantage of you when you're new. We experienced that a little bit. So vet your resources if you're going to pay for anything, or if you're going to jump into a relationship, you want to date before you get married. When it comes to joint ventures or teaming or any of that sort of thing. But as far as actual resources, like I said, I used everything I could. I found a gazillion podcasts, listened to just about every version of government contracting podcast that's out there. The two best I found for getting started, there's one called the Government Contractors podcast, or the Contracting Officers podcast. And it's run by two former contracting officers that go through the different FAR components that nobody really understands, and they present it from the contracting officer's perspective and from the business perspective, and where the potential gaps and rub might be. And then the second one was Game Changers, which is put out by RSM Federal, and that is purely from the business perspective, and they cover more things like business development and how to get your foot in the door and how to talk to customers and how to get them to call you back. You know, what conferences to go to. How do you know if you're going to go to a conference? What questions to ask? You know, a lot of this, you don't know what you don't know. I worked with Apex Accelerators, formerly known as PTAC. So definitely leveraged that, leveraged the SBA. I started making a ton of connections on LinkedIn. I started finding anything free that I could find. I used it.
Thank you. Thank you. That was good information. And thank you for the plug for the formerly PTAC. The program formerly known as PTAC. Yeah. Brenda, how would you answer that? Which resources or people have you used to help with your business growth?
Well, I was fortunate to be one of the first, well, we were the first emerging leaders program for the SBA. I flew into Fairbanks from Kodiak every couple of weeks, and I met some other strong leaders there, and also I met some lifelong friends there that are also new to business, and so we are great friends. And although we are all so busy right now with our businesses that we don't get together very often, but we're always there for each other. So connect with those people and learn and share. I have often felt like, you know, I've had to learn everything on my own my entire life. But, you know, with the internet now and with so many people out there, you'll find everybody's experiencing kind of the same thing. And so communication is key. PTAC, I was lucky enough to have a great boss specialist who just left and went back to PTAC. So I get to tag along, and you know, it's great. Utilize those resources. Both of them are amazing.
Thanks. Esther, what resources or people have you used to help with your business growth?
I would say that Christine and Brenda both hit on it, but the internet, I know that's a terribly vague answer, but if you have a problem, someone else has had that problem and the internet has the answer. The hard part is figuring out how to ask the internet correctly, because you can't ask it like you ask a person. But if you have a question, there's always, even if the answer on the internet is call Apex Accelerator, at least that helped you figure out who you should contact, or whether this person emailing you is actually a scam, or whether you should. So yeah, there's all the answers. We have all the answers at our fingertip. In fact, we have all the answers like on our phones. You don't even need a computer. You can find the answer. I just troubleshot a payroll issue today with the internet.
Isn't that amazing? Those little mini computers to go. A whole generation that has that, you know, doesn't remember the day of encyclopedias and no such thing as internet. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Pull up the next slide. So back to you, Christine. Did you have a business mentor, whether formalized or informal, that helped your business growth? And how did you find that mentor?
Well, I would say when I first started at ASCI, I worked for Scott Hopkins. He kind of mentored me into taking over the commercial aspect of the business. So he found me, and then unfortunately he passed away. So I lost that mentorship. And now I would say it's a network. There's not any one person. There's probably 4 or 5 people, all that bring slightly different things to the relationship that I rely on. And it was just through networking and asking questions and being humble and being willing to say, I don't know what I'm doing in this thing. Can you help me? Was really the approach that I took.
Thank you. Thank you. Brenda, did you have a business mentor that helped you with your business growth? And if you did, how did you find that?
You know, I did not, and I did try many, many times to go through the mentor program, and I reached out to several big construction companies or other construction companies, seeing if they would mentor me. It just, everybody is so busy with their own businesses, they don't really want to help the little guy that's, especially a woman, coming into that male-dominated world. You know, construction is definitely a different animal. And so I didn't have a mentor. I have grown the business. I pretty much on my own, and I feel like I have a lot to offer other people, and I would love to mentor someone. I don't want people to go through the painful steps that I've had to go through and learn from. So at some point, I hope to be that person that can share my wealth and knowledge. And I do have an 18-year-old grandson going to construction management college, and I'm going to be mentoring him for sure. But there's more than one person to mentor in the world. I mean, we don't want to take all that information and knowledge that we've spent years getting and growing and learning from, and just take it with you when you go. It really should be shared. It really should.
Thank you, Brenda. Esther, same question to you. Did you have a business mentor that helped your business growth?
I did not. I really wish I did. Even like currently, I really wish I had someone I could ask questions. I think maybe we all are, but there are times when I'm filled with self-doubt, like, am I doing the right thing? What should I be doing? What's happening? Help me. And I really don't have anyone to ask, and I wish I did. So yeah, that's kind of a gap. I will say it's occurred to me lately that maybe I'm just not asking. So people are really willing to help, and I just have come through a few experiences where I'm stunned at how much people will help you if you ask. And so perhaps I just need to be asking.
I think that's one thing that came out of the pandemic is that acknowledgement that we humans are all in this mess together, and that willingness to reach a little bit beyond when we were kind of locked into our own four walls. It's like we needed that. And it opened up a lot of that, hey, I need to reach out and talk. And not just even on that personal level, but for that business level too, because everyone entered into that business survival, personal survival in a completely different business climate. So absolutely, I think just that willingness to open up and to take that risk of reaching out to someone and saying, hey, help, how do I do this? Where's that? Do you know anybody? Gosh, if you don't have the answers, who would you reach out to? So I think those are all great information to pass on to the audience. So thank you for that. All right. So I'm going to hop back to you, Christine. What lesson did you learn from completing your first contract, and whether it was governmental or a commercial contract?
Oh, well, we'll do the federal one because it was the first major one I landed after I took over was a federal. I would say the biggest lesson is be prepared to win it. You write these great, fantastic proposals, and conceptually on paper it's great, and then you win it, and the real work starts. You think you've done a lot getting ready for it, but then you win it, and then you find out that what's actually being done and what they wrote in the performance work statement, or PWS, is they're not always aligned. And so that was, be flexible when you're in that point of standing it up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because it's down to what was the intent and how did you envision it versus how was it written, and were you the one writing it? And yeah, that's COR. Are they the ones that were involved in writing it together, and they're envisioning something different? Oh, flexibility.
Yeah, and not just how you read it and how they wrote it, but sometimes what they wrote and what they want aren't the same thing.
I bet there isn't a
gotta figure
single
that out.
software programming question, and I'm thinking of a certain federal agency with, you know, the SAM initials that have gone through that exact same thing. And I'm sure the validation team is going through that. We want a contract, and oh, we want a contract. So yeah, absolutely. That is any other, even a smaller aha moment with that first contract, other than you had your big lesson learned.
Big lesson learned. I think the smaller lessons in there were pricing nuances, right? There's always assumptions you make that aren't accurate, and just make sure that you're catching those early, because they can snowball and catch up to you. Don't, you know, like Esther said, contracts are negotiable. So if you catch those catch them before you've signed the contract. You don't have to sign the contract the day they send it to you. Take your time, read it, double check your numbers, and then sign it.
That's great information. Brenda, question to you. What lesson did you learn from completing your first contract?
Well, the biggest lesson I learned was bonding is everything. And I wasn't quite prepared for a $5 million tunnel in the fact that it was, we were all excited about getting it. We had 3 days to actually put the bid together to submit back to them. And then COVID hit. And the number one first thing that shut down in the world was metal buildings. So we had this big giant contract for a metal building that we couldn't get metal for. So, I mean, I hope that in our lifetimes we never have to go through that again, because that was devastating to try and be able to find that project and bring it to completion. Bonding was very difficult because we got 3 contracts at the same time. So when you get that many contracts, you have to be able to bond them all. And no one ever told me the SBA provides that bonding if you that's available. So I ended up actually paying a lot to indemnify with a joint venture partner, which cost me over 50% of my profit. So my biggest thing is basically go to the SBA and get your bonding all set up prior to any contracts.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a critical big lesson learned. We talk about that a lot with construction companies. It's like, if before you can realize that growth, you have to resolve that bottleneck for the construction realm. And that surety bonding is really that biggest hurdle. Absolutely. What about a little lesson learned, a little aha moment you might want to share?
A million of those. I have those daily. I would say just don't kill yourself or wear yourself out. You know, I tend to myself multitask to the max. So I take on pretty much everything everywhere. And so my biggest lesson is just have that little bit of downtime for yourself. It can be overwhelming if I let myself go, because all I do is multitask jobs all day long, and I go through them in my sleep. So try to shut it off is what I would say. My biggest little lesson is at some point, sit down, have a glass of wine, relax, and forget about it for a few minutes a day.
Absolutely. Give yourself permission to take a breath. I know it's funny in that multitasking world, just to read a book versus listening to an audiobook and doing, you know, running, jogging, paperwork, whatever, but just to read a book is almost a guilty pleasure because you're only doing one thing. But absolutely, that is a great aha moment. Give ourselves that permission to sit and breathe for a moment and just have a singular focus. So Esther, question to you. What lesson did you learn from completing your first contract?
Yeah, I think it follows on things that have already been said several times. I think Christine said this as well. First of all, I don't even know what bonding is, so I live in a totally different world than you guys.
You want to know?
And I don't, it doesn't sound like I do. So the same thing, that contracts are negotiable and that you really need to read them, and that once the contract is signed, you're in it. You have no more leverage, but you do actually have leverage, even though you feel like the little guy, you do have leverage before the contract is signed. So make sure you read all the bits and pieces of it, and then ask questions about it, and then ask for what you want in the contract. So I almost didn't do that on my first one. I got a contract that had a really high insurance amount, and I immediately freaked out and tried to figure out how to get that much insurance. Would have cost me tens of thousands of dollars. And then I happened to ask the client something about it. She's like, "Oh, no, we change that all the time. We'll change it." I had just like wasted 3 days of my life and almost spent a lot of money for something that was like completely flexible.
That's one of those moments where you have that visualization, the visualization. I can get that word eventually. The old Tom and Jerry cartoon, somebody's got each other around the throat. It's like, why did you have that in there? If it was something that was just like, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
Those moments. So what's a little aha moment?
I don't think I have one. I don't know. Yeah, I really don't. Let's not waste. Yeah. I gave you my moment.
Your aha moment is to say, yeah, it's time to move on. So, all right, let's go to that next question then. All right, and this is back to Christine. So what are your biggest challenges or pain points right now?
Honestly, it's growth. So we've reached a point that we're too small for the big banks to take a look at us, and we're growing too fast for our local regional banks. They're uncomfortable. It's too risky. So with this contract that I just won, I'm having to use short-term financing, which is stupid expensive. Because I couldn't, like I thought I had it all lined up, and then nobody approved it. So from a financing perspective, and so luckily I had this third path that I had already started as a just in case, and I'm using it. And luckily, you know, the way that we priced this contract, I'm not eliminating all of my profit using this. It's going to be expensive up front, but I'll be able to dig out of that pretty quickly. And but that's what I would say my biggest pain point is right now, is we're growing a little faster than the banks are comfortable with.
That is quite a challenge, because who's to say we want them to set our limits for us?
Right.
Yeah, it's somebody else's determination looking at you from the outside in saying, nah, slow down, too risky, we're not certain, you're not checking boxes. That's a terrible thing to have to combat that.
And what I learned in this, I didn't know this, what I learned in this process is that government contracts are pretty stable, right? Your big banks all know that. They know how to work with government contracts. These small local regional banks, all they're looking is at what you've done in the past. So if I've done $3 million of revenue in the last year and I just won a $5 million contract, they're not counting that revenue. And so they're not willing to fund me for the 90 days of startup capital that I need for that. And so now I got to figure that out, right?
Absolutely. That one would be where you definitely have to give yourself permission to have a glass of wine and just go, okay, we have contingency plans. Absolutely. Brenda, what are your biggest challenges or pain points right now?
Oh, Christina and I are on the same path. Absolutely. It is financial all the way, 100%. As you're growing so fast and your jobs are coming up, you know, in my world in construction, you have to buy all the materials and ahead of time. So, I'll give you an example. I have a $2.5 million roof. I have 2 months to do it in. I have over $680,000 in roofing materials and then $200,000 to ship them to our island in the middle of nowhere. So and you cannot bill for them until the materials are on the job site. They will not ship those materials until you pay for it in advance. And you're 100% right. If you go to one of the local banks, they say, well, you know, what do you need this money for? It's a line of credit. I need that in order to do this job. I don't have, you know, I have other jobs too, multiple. And they don't see that bigger picture. They don't want to loan you the money to do the job, in other words. So the biggest challenge for me has always been that financial aspect. And I just wish in the 8A world that there were more, or in the world that there were more people that understood government contracts and how the process works and how you need to. I'm constantly juggling my financial in order to move jobs forward. And, you know, I think in today's world is having 30 guys that have families and making sure they're working year round so they don't leave you and go to someone else, that you need to really juggle a lot of financial aspects to make it all work. And my second challenge is qualified people. That is the biggest challenge in the construction field today. It's not like it used to be, and everybody wants those specific jobs that are Davis-Bacon, and so when you don't have one, they go to work somewhere else. And I take a lot of pride in our company. Most of our guys have been with us 15 plus years, and they're like family to me. So the pressure's on me to make sure that we have enough work for them so their families are fed and they don't have to go somewhere else. So I think that's the biggest challenge that I have, and it's always ongoing.
I'm at a loss of words because I can hear all of those pain points and those stress moments. And yeah, absolutely. When you actually do give yourself permission to have a quiet moment, just shutting all of those concerns and anxieties out, a challenge, it's a pain point all in its own self. So Esther, same question to you. What are your biggest challenges or pain points right now?
Well, I'll start with saying I give Christine and Brenda lots of sympathy because I don't have any monetary challenges or pain points, and so that sounds terrible, ladies. I'm really sorry. But I don't operate in a world where I have $1 million of expenses. That's just also insane. And my biggest challenge right now is finding the right people to meet client-wise. Like how do I, even here at a trade show, the people at the booth are not the people that I need to meet. They're not the people who are looking at these contracts, who are putting out projects. And so, you know, how do I meet? And I think Christine mentioned this already, or Christine, sorry. How do I find this person and how do I meet this person? And I feel really discouraged right now about that, being at this conference for 2 days. So somebody out there, please help me. And then my second challenge does kind of tie on the contracting money thing, which I'm single-handedly, not single-handedly, I'm trying to change this pay when paid thing. So I kick back on that on every single contract, and I think that's a terrible world to operate in. I try to pay all my vendors right away when I get their invoice, not when I get paid. And so anyway, I'm kind of out on a soapbox about that as a challenge for us as contractors in general. It's not right for a $5 billion company to withhold $12,000 from a contractor for 90 days while they wait to get paid, I think. So there's my soapbox.
Oh gosh, absolutely. And that is a great one. And that goes back to those negotiating those subcontracting deals too, you know, in that permission to give yourself to stand up and negotiate those terms and conditions, not just with the contract owner, but those primes as well, if you're coming in as a subcontract point. I have to ask you guys, because I just cannot take off my PTAC Alaska Apex hat. Have you heard of the term assignment of claims, where you're using the contract as collateral?
Yep,
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah, Yeah, sometimes knowing it and convincing other people that it's a real thing,
Right.
another pain point and hurdle to get over. But all right, well, thank you. Let's go on. And yes, Esther, networking. Oh my gosh, and that's the kind of that ties back even to the financial indirectly. Do you go to these big events on the hopes that you do meet the right people? And how do you research if the right people are going to be there? And if the people you're thinking are the right people, are they? Or do you need to go in a different direction as well? So, a lot, absolutely a lot. All right. Okay, deep breath. Let's move on. I feel like I'm grilling you guys. So, starting back with you, Christine, how do you envision success in, and I'll let you kind of fill in that blank, a next project, next business venture, next goal to conquer, or even just, that personal achievement as a business owner. How do you envision that success? What does that look like to you?
I think for me personally, it's really, are we in a position to help our employees grow and thrive? And if we are, then I feel like we're successful. And so that's in starting up a new contract. Once we get to the point that we're through the rough points, that the bumps have been smoothed out, and I can start focusing on helping those employees grow and develop and thrive, then I feel like it's successful. That is one of our differentiating points as a service contractor, is how we treat and foster growth in our employee base, even if there were employees that we're inheriting. We're a very employee-centered company. So yeah, I would say that to me is successful, regardless of what it is, whether it's a project or a new contract or, this fiscal year or whatever it is that we're looking at. Are we at a point that we are able to successfully focus on our employees? Then we're successful.
That is a phenomenal flag of success to be able to raise for yourself. Absolutely. And this is kind of silly in a way, but always make me think of my daughter who has her cat, and she's like, enrichment for the cats, that they have a good day, this little thing, this little extra, this little, that their life is fulfilled. And I know comparing a single cat to an entire company's worth of employees, but really that's kind of that same are they happy? Are they going to stay? Are you going to be able to retain them? And are they going to come to work inspired to do what they need to do because you are concerned about your employees? So kudos, absolutely fantastic. Brenda, tagging you in on this one, how do you envision success in?
Well, honestly, it goes back to your employees. You're 100% right there. Success to me is having enough money in the bank that I don't have to worry about the next project and funding it. That's a priority. And also having enough money in the bank that you don't have to worry about payroll, and enough work on the table to keep everybody working year-round, which we're in construction in Alaska. So having enough work in the winter, we build outside. So that's, it's a juggle to make sure there's enough inside work. And we've actually expanded to Arizona. I have two sons that live down there, and one is running Friend Contractors in Arizona for me, and raising my next 5 workers that are going to come work. And so, to me, success is being able to continue our family operation, move it forward, and to keep everybody fed and happy. And that's my biggest goal in life, actually.
That's a lot of job satisfaction out of that statement. It truly is.
Mm-hmm.
Esther, your turn. How do you envision success in?
Well, I guess I feel as though the business is successful right now, so my vision of success would be things just continuing and maybe growing slightly. I'm typically not very good at visions or goals. I just start doing things as much as I can all the time. And but in the beginning, I did set a goal, like a vision of success, like as a certain number, because I'm a math person, a certain monetary amount. If I make this much a year, then I can keep doing the business. And that way you have at least, you know, well, to me, it was I would know if I needed to quit and like actually get a job as opposed to doing a business. If I did not make X amount of money to feed myself and clothe myself, then I would need to get a job. But yeah, so maybe I need to set some visions for success for future.
Sometimes I think too, just giving ourselves little mini visions, goals for the day, that vision of I have successfully pushed back that insurance is not going to be insanely expensive, woohoo, celebrate the moments. Another thing my daughter's really good at reminding me too, that the little win victories and envisioning those as well as they build to those
Yeah.
larger.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Fantastic. All right. Gosh, you guys have me all inspired. But next question. I know. So, Christine, back to you again. What do you think sets your company apart from your competitors?
Honestly, I think it's what I was saying a second ago, how we define success. It's we're very employee centric. It's the benefit of being the business owner is I don't have anybody to answer to. So if I want to run my profit margin pretty thin so that I can put more money in my employees' 401k, or I can, do other things, I don't have to ask. I just do it. So I think our culture is what sets us apart, and the fact that, that's defined by, I know the name of every employee in the company. I know what they do. I know their kids' names. And when we get to a certain size, that might be a little bit more difficult. But my goal is to continue,
right,
at least attempting to remember all of that, and demonstrating that we care. Because as an employee, if you feel like your employer cares, you give more.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We all do it. So, to be somewhere that people like to work.
Oh, I'm trying to remember my social sciences day. There's somebody's hierarchy of needs.
Maslow.
Maslow. Okay, I'm thinking Pavlov, and I'm like, no, I must be hungry. That's
Oh,
the
that's the
dog in the
dog.
bell. But absolutely, that hierarchy of needs. So how do you market that? How do you promote that is that key differentiator for your business over your competitors?
Yeah, so it's metrics. We have a really low injury rate. We have a really low work comp ratio, or EMR. We have a really high employee seniority. So it's the metrics that demonstrate that our employees like to be here. We have more than 3 million man hours worked without a recordable incident.
That's phenomenal.
That means the employees are paying attention. They care. They put that little bit of extra in. Our average tenure, now keep in mind, we're in warehousing and inventory management and
high risk,
that
absolutely.
kind of job. And today, our average seniority is 8 years.
Wow. Yes, my son's in that industry, so I absolutely know what you're talking about. Absolutely.
And so that's how we market it, as far as the metrics that go with it. And then we do some specific trainings, and there's specific things that we do to maintain that culture, and that gets kind of embedded into the proposals that we write. But at the end of the day, nobody says we have terrible values. We hate our employees, right? Everybody says we love our employees, we treat them great, we're the best. It's how can you prove that?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for letting me to add that little writer question on. Brenda, what do you think sets your company apart from your competitors?
Definitely quality. We have our motto, which is build it right the first time. And that is because we got a little tired of coming in after other contractors that had been here and felt It's a different environment here. It's a maritime climate. So we're out in the middle of Alaska, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and we'll get people that say, oh, we're going to grab that contract and really lowball it because we want to spend our summer in Kodiak, Alaska, you know, watching the bears and fishing all summer. And they just come in and they don't build to our climate. And then we have to come in and fix the roofs and fix things afterwards. And so we really built our reputation on quality and experience, and we're energy raters, so we really spend the time and the difference. In fact, one thing we tell people is we don't build the code because code is a minimum standard, and we won't build to code here because you can't. It won't last the environments that we have. So that and our employees who have really been with us 15 to 5 years on average, and I grow them from within. Most of these, I like to grab the high school students that just graduate and really want to be in the construction field, and then we educate them and we send them to all their trainings and get them certified. I had someone who was working at washing cars at a car rental agency, and now he's one of our top roofers, making $60 an hour. And he's young, he's 25, he's just starting his family. And those are the success stories that I try to target. You know, most construction companies will hire a crew, they'll come to Kodiak, they'll hire a crew, and then they're gone. And they just leave them out there. And we just we grow and mold our own. And we know that they're going to be here for the long term. And when things get slow, we take them down to Arizona and we build down there. So, you know, they love that. You know, they get out of Alaska.
What Alaska wouldn't like to have a break? Yeah, someplace warm and sunny in the middle of winter.
Yeah, so I would say that's the two things, the quality and our crew, and the fact that we keep them happy. And I think that's the most important part of being in business, because if everyone's miserable, you're going to fail. You have to keep everyone happy.
Some fabulous points. I could almost see a company tagline of something along the lines, instead of hiring us to fix the first person's errors, hire us to do it right the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, there's no way to understate that too. Thank you, Brenda. Esther, what do you think sets your company apart from your competitors?
Yeah, and I do have to go after this question, Jody, so
Okay.
I hope that's okay. As discussed yesterday, I appreciate your patience, and I'm really happy to have the opportunity to participate in this, so thank you. And thanks, Christine and Brenda. Great meeting you. Yeah, so I'm kind of in a niche field, so it's maybe a bit more specific in that I have a technical background in what I do, as well as the field work expertise. So a lot of people in my industry just send like a college person or college graduate out to the field, but almost all the time I go to the field myself, and I have an advanced degree in what I do. So I like to tell my clients, you know, I'm on site with that experience, not trying to talk someone through a problem from Nevada who's sent you, you know, a bachelor's level person who doesn't have any idea what's going on. So I think I try to sell that depth of technical expertise combined with knowing what's going on in Alaska. So a lot of competitors come up from Nevada or Arizona or Washington, kind of like Brenda was saying, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do the Alaskan thing, and then have no idea about how it's extremely complex, the logistics, how to get around, how to operate in a village, how to make friends in a village, because if you make enemies in a village, you're going to get absolutely nothing done, probably negative things done. So I think being local, meaning that I understand how to get around Alaska to all these really remote locations, and operate successfully in that environment, combined with the technical expertise I can bring, is, yeah, my differentiator. So there you have it.
Oh, absolutely. So selling yourself and knowing your experience and your value and being confident with that. Absolutely, you're right, because you're going to be the one there on hand to resolve it, and not someone else that's going to have to go find the answers and then come back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Okay.
is a fantastic offer. And thank you. That was my last formalized question. So perfect timing on your
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the
Excellent.
next question is, hey, audience, what do you guys want to ask our panelists? So Esther, thank you so much for giving us your time and stepping away from the conference to be here this afternoon. I truly
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. And
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Esther.
You're welcome. Bye, Brenda. Bye, Christine. Nice to meet you.
All right. So we're going to put it out, guys. We've got about 20 minutes, and you can hear the years of industry experience and the business experience and the personal capabilities here in front of us today. Do you have any questions? Go ahead, raise hands. I do have one comment that Katie made, that she said her business is Alaskan glamping, and she's interested in contracts for the Alaska State Parks and BLM for land use to expand location offerings for luxury camping. So it's a good statement, but Katie, did you have a question behind that? And I'm going to give you a second to either add to that or raise your hand. And then I'm going to jump over to Lorraine. Lorraine Lynn. Okay, I've unmuted you. You just need to unmute yourself. Oops, nope, I got to click it again. You know, sometimes.
Okay.
Okay,
Woohoo. So my business is actually a bit like Esther's, where I have this distinct specialty and I'm in the field and doing this kind of thing. And I am finding that I'm running up against needing or could expand and hire employees. And I am terrified of the concept of like what you're talking about, Brenda, which is making sure you make payroll. And I'm also worried that if I expand, I have some employees, they're all kind of ad hoc, part-time, project-based kind of employees, but no full-time employees. And I'm worried, one, that I actually don't want to be a manager. I want to continue to do the technical work that I do. And I'm worried about making payroll. And I'm also worried that it'll force me to take contracts that don't necessarily align with my values, which I see a lot of like environmental consulting firms do. Right now, I'm entirely doing environmental restoration work. And I love it. And I want to keep doing that. There's just barely more of it than I can handle. But I don't know. I'd like your thoughts on expanding, growing, what it takes to hire employees, the advantages, disadvantages, kind of your perspective on that. Thank you.
Christine, you want to try that?
Well, it's terrifying. I'll just tell you that making payroll is a terrifying endeavor. There's been more than one time that I've had to put money into the company to be able to pay employees, and you just hope you get it back. There's times that I have not paid myself so that I could make payroll. It's a thing. It's a thing. The upside is when it's good, it's good. The downside is when it's bad, it's bad. So I think I wouldn't be afraid of having employees. There's services if you wanted to have a service that'll do that for you, or they'll handle all of the payroll and all of you pay for them, but there's companies that'll do that for you. So if the fear is the process, I wouldn't worry too much about that. So I think really it comes to digging deep in yourself and deciding what do you want to be when you grow up, right? You can still be in the technical and run a business. And if that's what you want to do, you probably want to have a company where you're outsourcing your employees. And then when you're big enough to afford it, hire a manager to manage those employees so that you can stay in the business. But that takes planning. That's really what I've got there, other than don't be afraid of it because it's new. Just think about what it is that you want to be when you grow up as far as the business. What do you want this to be? Do you want it to be you and one other person? Do you want it to be you and, do you want to be $1 million worth of profit a year? If so, you probably can't do that on your own. You probably are going to have to bite the bullet and be a manager.
Well,
That's a great way to look at it.
I would say about the same thing. And one key thing I heard you say was that you love what you're doing. There are a lot of headaches that come with having employees. It's just another level of pressure. If you were to hire someone, you should hire someone just like you that loves what they're doing and is a benefit to you and your company. But I will tell you, there's been so many times that I've actually had to put my own personal money in to make payroll. And, it's also very time consuming I have nearly 30 employees almost all the time. It depends on the time of year, but that's a lot of pressure. You're having to make sure that they are at the job site, working the job the way that you expect it to be done. And so there's a lot of added pressures. If you can get by with doing your own, I would love to be in that world. But in a real world, I'm not going to be able to go build a $5 million building by myself. So it's not going to happen. But I tried very hard not to micromanage. There's a lot of tools out there. We use Raken, which also has tracking built into it. So when they're at a job site, and they're supposed to be at a job site, but really they're at the coffee store eating bagels, So there's a lot of tools out there, but it is a different level of comfort.
Thank you, ladies. I really like that comment, and it kind of takes me back to an earlier question, is, what do you visualize as success? And not all companies have to achieve some multi-million-dollar. It's what you want to do, and if that growth is what you want. And if you want to stay a 1 or 2 person company, and that is meeting all your personal needs, it's meeting your business needs, and it's doing what you want and providing that satisfaction, great. And then is growth a necessarily component to be able to stay where you're at with that level as well? Because I have talked to a lot of clients, and they don't want to be large companies. They just want to be well secure in their corner of the world, which is its own challenge in itself. Absolutely. Thank you. Lauren, do you have any other comments or you want to further?
No, I really appreciate that. It's actually really excellent confirmation that I'm going to keep going with my motto of keep it small and keep it all.
You'll have to get that printed on a t-shirt just in case you have days of doubts.
Thank you.
Maybe a coffee mug or two. Absolutely. Thank you. So anyone else? All right. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes. So if you're thinking about asking a question but are uncertain, what you can do is you can always reach out to one of the groups supporting our event today, the Alaska Women's Business Center, of course ourselves, the Alaska Apex, the program formerly known as PTAC. And I still can't say that without picturing the Prince symbol. I mean, I'm a product of the 80s. What can I say? Or even out to Norma or Kim Tripp at the SBA, and let us know those questions. And if we don't have those immediate answers, and we're we're happy to forward that on to our wonderful panelists today, that they can respond if they have time at the moment. Absolutely. Feel free to follow it up. Take this information that you've gained today in this experience, and hopefully it has encouraged you, and it'll last beyond just this moment of this time that we've sat here and listened to these amazing comments. I know I feel inspired. So, all right, guys, that was my 2 minutes of stalling. We've got about 10 more minutes on the clock. But I will tell you, my motto for webinars is nobody has ever complained if I've closed an event a little bit early, especially for someone that's on the East Coast and it's getting late. So I'm going to do a last call from questions, and then I am
think
going to
I raised my
go ahead.
hand again. Sorry, I think my
Oh,
mic
go
is
ahead.
still live, Lorraine.
Yeah, it is. Go ahead.
Thank you. So another question, in the context of a small business and keeping it small, I have not yet ventured into government contracting because of the worry of the time it would take to manage the contracts. And I'm just wondering, on your perspective, do you think that that is something for a small business like myself, basically single shingle, that it's doable and still have enough time to accomplish all the work that I need to do?
I think it depends on the contract. So if you're getting a contract that's a single person support, if you could do the work, managing that contract is going to be pretty easy. So what I have found in my contracts is you've got your government required reports, which are basically progress updates, and are you performing the way that we expect you to be performing? And if it's just you, those are the reports that you would be giving to somebody anyways. On the commercial side, it would be the similar types of things that you're given to your commercial customer. So if it's a single person can do it, or a quarter of a person can do it because you've got multiple things going on, right? I wouldn't let that hold you back. The hard part's getting that contract, not maintaining it once you have it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Getting the contract is very, very difficult. I think my first contract, I had already had my 8A for 5 years. So they don't come easy. And if you have the opportunity, you should absolutely jump on it. And if you find yourself a little overwhelmed and not being able to keep up, then you can look at hiring someone. But don't let it don't hesitate from moving your business forward if you think you can handle it.
Yeah, I would agree. And if you don't want to hire somebody full-time, part-time, do what you've been doing and have a 1099 that comes in and gives you a little support here and there.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and don't forget, just that plug here, the person who's not got her camera going, but for that learning language, the government contracting, the transaction, the activity, doing the work is fairly similar to the commercial aspect. It's just understanding the language and the paperwork at the start of it all. And that can be overwhelming, but we're here to help with that as well. So just want to encourage as well. Sometimes it's, we look at that paperwork as that barrier when really it's just understanding the language, and the whys is all their paper in front of you, and understanding those legal constraints and realms that you're going to be functioning in. And then after you get past that, the acronyms. Oh my goodness.
The government loves their acronyms, and the same acronym means 7 different things.
I found a list of acronyms once because I started compiling it because it's like a foreign language,
Oh, and the same acronym can mean different things. Yeah.
Every customer has acronyms. You can have the same acronym, 6 different customers, 6 different meanings.
Yep. That's when you learn the value of clarifying questions. What the heck do you mean by this 2 letters? Well, thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate that additional question. I do. Anyone else want to? Lorraine, I'm just going to raise your hand, and if you need one more, just pop it back up. Anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask Christine or Brenda? All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. Thank you for our attendees. I appreciate the time that you've dedicated to being here. I hope you've gained some great information from our phenomenal panelists today. And Christine, Brenda, and of course, Esther, thank you so much for giving your time and donating that, because I know you guys are just insanely busy. And I'm going to remember you next time I feel like I have too much to do, so I don't feel so bad for myself.
You can always call us.
Yeah, just give you a list of things we're doing so you can get exhausted.
Or if you say, hey, you want to come help? Take some of this off for me, and we'll share that list. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call this a wrap.